Yo, you know the vibes. Uncle Ralph, Ralph McDaniels, Video Music Box, Lord Nez in the building.
Yeah, Queens get the money, baby. Shout out to Gully TV, man.
Gully TV.
How you say get your dribble right?
Get your dribble right.
Get your dribble right?
Yeah.
If you tune in to me, you watching Gully TV. I have a special guest from the West Side. Go ahead and introduce yourself, G.
Absolutely. My name is Ladaro Pennix. I go by Moncio. You know, I'm an individual that's an entertainer, you know, an entrepreneur, a movie director, a motivational speaker, published author, educated, you know, a big brother to many, you know, and so that's what I am. I'm an individual that's been through the struggle. I know the struggle. I live the struggle. So I relate to everyone's struggle because that's what unites us all, that struggle.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We were put together by a very special gentleman I've been working with a long time out of Baltimore. Bird came across his story and he told me it was very worth me looking into it. And that's why I brought you here this evening.
Thank you.
First off, could you start off by explain the best you can to my listeners how you ended up in the situation that you're in right now?
Well, when I was young, I was very impressionable. You know, I experienced a lot of abuse from the home. And because I couldn't defend myself from the abuser at home, that anger, and they say anger is the installation that we wrap around pain, I end up taking that anger and putting it up on my society, you know, and I ran to the streets and became a prodigy of my society. You know what I'm saying? And so what happened was that got up in those streets and, you know, got influenced by gang culture. And by being a part of the gang culture, I ended up just getting lost in the street life, you know, being influenced. And, you know, people were able to see that rage and that anger, and they utilized that to their advantage, you know. And so, you know, eventually I ended up doing things that cost my life, cost my freedom. You know, I ended up committing crimes one of my crimes where I was defending my homegirls, and in the process, it didn't go well, and one individual ended up dead, and a bunch of people ended up shot. It was unfortunate, you know, because that was never my thought to just jump into that type of mentality and et cetera. You know, the situation created. It was just very unfortunate. I own that though, because at the end of the day, you know, we are a reflection of our choices.
Ladaro,
you know, a lot of times we say that we never had it.
Hold on for one second. I need you to be a little bit more transparent. The people who listening to this.
Okay. Absolutely.
They searching for the meat. You know what I'm saying? You kind of explained the situation in layman's terms, but I need you to be a little bit more detailed. I need you to say exactly what you're incarcerated for, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so we'll start off like this, man. I'm in jail for 2 murders, 2 attempted murders, and 10 robberies. One of my cases, as I was explaining, it was a situation to where my homegirls were being threatened. I was called out to defend my homegirls. When I confronted an opposite gang, one of their leaders, it just didn't go well. You know, one thing led to another, and that gang member was killed by me.
Okay.
That was my mentality back then. You know, they called me for a reason, because I was a no-nonsense individual. I was an individual that I had pride myself on beating up the bullies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I had been bullied my whole life within my own home, and so I took that aggression out up on my society. So when I saw individuals that were treating people the wrong way or thinking that they were tough, I wanted to show them that I was tougher. Okay. You know, and so that's how that situation turned out. And I gave the street my all with that negative aggression. You know, whether I'm squabbling, whether I'm shooting, whether I'm robbing, whatever. It was just that was the mentality back then.
Okay.
And so that was my mentality. That ended up costing me my life. It got me 4 life sentences plus 74 years.
And you caught this case as, not to cut you off, you caught this case as a juvenile?
Yes, I was 16 years old.
They didn't have any.
When
Not to cut you off, they didn't have any laws in California that would protect you from spending the rest of your life in a penitentiary. That they said the juveniles, some juveniles, their frontal lobe isn't developed fully in their early 20s and shit like that. You was 16, so that kind of would put you in a situation when you probably wasn't thinking all the way.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the time that I caught my case was the time that Clinton and Biden had enforced these new laws. I forgot the name of that law, but what happened was now that at that time, juveniles were able to be tried as an adult and sentenced to adult sentences.
Okay.
And so it was unfortunate because even though I was 16 when the crimes happened, I was now under a new jurisdiction. Because initially they would have it where juveniles would be tried in juvenile court and sentenced to juvenile life or whatever else. I got the worst of it. And so I found myself at age 17 on the prison yards, terrified, not knowing what to do, not understanding how to cope. It's one thing to be around fellow kids your age, who have that same aggression. But to be around this new type of, if you will, animal, it was something different. Because now you have these strategic individuals who are manipulating the youngsters. When I came into the system, you had these people called booty bandits. They would rape youngsters, and get away with it and still walk the yard as if they're
Hold on, G.
Okay.
What you never mentioned what jurisdiction you caught the case or what prison system that you were serving time in. I had to,
Okay, absolutely. Well, I caught my case in Long Beach, in Los Angeles County, but in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
My first prison, after my reception was North Current State Prison, but my first prison was High Desert State Prison. We opened up C Yard. And when I tell you that you open up a yard, that means that you're the first bus to actually enter into that yard. And so you're the first group of people. So when you enter into the cells, they still have the dust in there from the sawdust or whatever else they did,
Water
and so
in the pipes.
we were the first ones to open. Absolutely. And so what happened was that, when you open up a yard, everyone has to establish the societal norms, the social norms. You have to establish who gets this position, who sits where, who gets that, etc. That was one of the worst things that could have happened because that led to so many different riots.
All right, hold on.
So
Hold on.
Okay.
So what you describing to me is arriving at a jail, and they just opening the yard, and nobody has established themselves in the yard yet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You said that led to a lot of turmoil. Do you care to elaborate?
Absolutely. Let's just say that, the Southsiders want one side of the table, one side of the day room, and we want that same side of the day room, maybe for some strategic purposes. And no one comes to an agreement. Not all of a sudden there's fists blown and knives pulled out and everyone's getting stabbed and everyone's stabbing each other.
Right.
It was just things would break out at the spur of the moment.
And you was confronted with this at 17?
At 17. At 17.
Okay.
I can go even further. So I remember when there was a situation over money between Black and Hispanic. And we knew that there was tension between the Black and Hispanic. And for some reason, no one wanted to be the mediator. So we're out here on this yard that has not yet been fully established. There's really nothing on the yard except for some weights, and a basketball court and a pull-up bar. And individuals are setting up position. And sure enough, the yard kicks off. When the yard kicks off, everyone, the blacks and the Hispanics, rush at each other. I'm in the middle of the field.
Right.
I'm fighting, mind you, with my hands. Mind you, there's people involved that are already aware and they're already seasoned. So they have butcher knives bigger than Little Bow Wow on this battlefield. So while we're fighting, there's people being stabbed. While we're fighting, you have the COs shooting their block guns. While we're fighting, you have the COs spraying their pepper spray and their little bombs,
right,
throwing their bombs of spray. While we're fighting, you have the guy in the shower not only shooting the block gun, but also shooting the mini 14 at us.
Mm-hmm.
So with all this happening, that's what a riot is. You know what I'm saying? You're caught up in all this commotion of violence, and you don't know what to do. All you do is fight and hope that bullet doesn't have your name on it.
All right. Let me ask you a question. You said you arrived there, you were 16 or 17. Was you was from Long Beach. You had gang ties when you got there?
Absolutely. Yes,
okay.
sir, I did.
And you described the booty bandits. You mean to tell me that your people in the penitentiary couldn't keep them niggas off your young ass? Or was your people trying to fuck you? Because I seen that happen in the penitentiary.
That's a good question. So what it was you would have certain booty bandits who would be from certain people's neighborhoods. And they would pull in youngsters. And they had a trick of the trade where they would get them drunk and rape them or tie them up. I was fortunate. I was a big youngster. So to try me would be very difficult. But you would have these individuals who have these different, again, tricks of the trade. They'll teach you how to tie people up. And while they're teaching you how to tie people up, they'll have you put your hands together. And they'll put the slip knot over your hands. Once your hands are tied, what can you do? And so a lot of stuff that they were doing, it was just their tricks of the trade.
Right.
Some of them was your own homies, who would try, and back then, for some reason, it was acceptable. One tried with myself and was very unsuccessful. There was a time when this one booty bandit, he wanted a young guy, a young comrade who was light-skinned, short, with long hair. And I knew that young comrade, if he went in that cell, he was going to be raped. Even though he was, a down youngster and everything, he was 19, I was 17. I knew for a fact that he was going to be raped. So I volunteered to go in there. And sure enough, I went in there. The first thing, when I went in there, the first thing he says is, "Ooh, you have pretty eyes." I said, "All right." And so then he goes on to explain to me how every 7 days he has to relieve himself, meaning that every 7 days he was going to rape me. And so I'm like, right. And I'm not going to get into the whole situation, but no less than 30 minutes, he was not alive. He was dead. And so I remember, now, mind you, you got to realize that the staff utilized booty bandits as a means of behavior control.
I believe that. So
we were youngsters who were disrespectful to the staff.
Right.
We didn't have we were very rebellious.
Right.
So to put me in there, they were ready for something to happen. They were laughing because this was like about a 6'5", damn near 300-something pound dude that was huge, who was raping his cellies on a repeat basis. And so you would hear the screams when he would have cellies, and all you could do is shake your head. So when the commotion went on, I remember hanging from the dude's neck, choking him, and he runs to the door and hits the door. And I see the staff outside of the window laughing because they're thinking that he's got me, and it wasn't the other way around.
Right.
So when it was done, I remember the staff walking by for count, and he looks at me, he looks at him on the floor, he looks at me, and he just says, "No fucking way." Then he presses his alarm. They cuff me up, take me to the cages. They perform CPR on him. He did not. They couldn't resuscitate. Bam, and that was that start.
Hold on. This is on your prison record.
Yeah, it should be on my prison record.
I mean, did they give you a ticket? Did you get a ticket for it?
No. So what happened? No. What happened was I went to court for it. The way my history was extensive with violence, his history was extensive with raping and selling. I was 17. I should have never been in a cell with a grown-ass man who had a rape history.
Right.
They dropped that case.
Right. Rightfully so.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you mentioned to me that a lot of your incarceration was spent in the hole.
Yes, sir.
How much time did you do it? Let's call it segregation.
I did 17 years.
How long you been down?
From 98 to 2000. I've been down 28, going on 29.
You did your first 17 in a hole, and then you came back to population for the other 11? Or you had some...
No, I went to... I was in population, then I went to the hole, got out the hole, caught my case in 98, and stayed all the way until 2015.
2015. How does a person adjust to basically doing 23 and 1? That's what it is in Cali, right? Y'all get out for a shower, right?
Right. All right. Yeah, we get out for shower. We get out back then they had group yards, and so the group yards, that's where they would have the gladiator fights and stuff like that. But we had group yard, and then they eventually shut down the group yards and made cage yards, and so we would be in cages next to each other for like an hour a day.
Right. I think that's terrible that you was confronted with that, and in the institutions out there, y'all got a race problem and shit where y'all got to be looking out for yourselves from Mexicans and the white guys and the COs and shit. That's just terrible. So explain to me, how did that change your perception of the gang culture when you seen that, your homeboys is trying to fuck young niggas and shit like that?
It definitely did, because I didn't understand how these individuals were considered G homies, and they could do that to their own homies. I didn't understand how, this was even acceptable, because here it is. You guys, we're all subjected to the same cruel and unusual punishment, man. You know what I'm saying? And for us to even be preying on each other, to me, does not make sense. But then to even have your mind perverted in that type of way, to believe that you could do that to somebody and you're not gay, that's even worse. Like, how do you twist your mind to believe that this is okay? And so it did make me lose a lot of respect for a lot of my elders. You know what I'm saying? And even the elders who allowed that to pass because they've known them for some time and they have these secret bonds or whatever else.
Right.
So yeah, it did change my perception.
So it was tolerated if a person has status and shit like that.
Absolutely. For certain individuals, it was. For individuals that didn't have status that was doing that, something would happen to them. And it's always been, in here, it's always been a popularity contest. If you're popular, you get away with a lot of stuff. If you're not popular, you're through. Okay.
So 17 years in isolation. Tell me how you made that 17 years. How was you able to stomach that?
I'm going to say this, that it wasn't just me sitting there. In the beginning, I had a bad time adjusting. So I fought. I fought with staff. And I'm not talking about, me just yanking away or something. Back then, they used to set us up a lot. They used to crack open doors, and we would fight each other with other races. We would even catch them, the staff, and fight with them. And so it was a lot of fighting until finally I was around earth angels, if you will, who were conscious. And these particular elders, these were the right individuals, in my opinion, who saw my potential and started sending me, books, man. started sending me material that allowed me to think outside the box and realize that I'm more than just a gang member. I'm more than just a thug. I'm more than what society has told me I am. You know what I'm saying? And so, they started sending me National Geographics. And to you, that might seem simple. But to a young man that's never seen the world, and then to be able to see the Himalayas, the Serengeti, the rainforest, and be like, wow, there's a world beyond this. To see people living in more impoverished nations and still being happy and showing their pride, it just makes you really self-reflect and change the way you think about yourself and even your living situation. And so for me, it took a lot of different situations as well as the earth angels around me to just feed me that knowledge that began to wake me up. Because when you're in solitary confinement, you slow down. You're forced to slow down. And so it just made me really start looking within and asking myself, who do I want to be? What type of legacy do I want to leave for the duration of my life?
Let me ask you something. In order for you to be in the hole for 17 years, you had to continue to act up when you was down there, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I want, because I know the kangaroo court didn't sentence you down there to the hole for 17 years. So you got down there, you went through a metamorphosis, but in order for you to stay down there for 17 years, you were still acting up, man. So you got to explain to me.
That's what I was saying in the beginning. In the beginning, that's exactly what I was saying. My adjustment was, but I'll go into details. I mean, everything from staff assaults, batteries, cell extractions. Cell extractions is when you cover up your door. Once you cover up your door, you put shampoo or lotion on your floor. You make spider webs in your cell, and you roll up your mattress so you can sit behind the mattress when they shoot the block gun. Back when they were doing cell extractions, they would have two sergeants. One sergeant would shoot high, one sergeant would shoot low with a block gun, a 37 millimeter block gun. While they're shooting, once they shoot, the other staff will come behind them and spray in the cell. So you would have to be masked up so that you can breathe through your shirt, your wet shirt, you know what I'm saying, so you're not choking. And once they do that for so long, they finally come in as a team. And then you fight them in the cell. And once they take you down, they do their normal police brutality and, strip you out, strip your cell out, and you got to pretty much sleep naked in that cell for however duration that they choose to keep you in there. It's usually about 7 days to 7 to 10 days.
Right.
Other situations, there was snitches back there. There was, and we would have to deal with those individuals who were considered snitches. There were individuals that were considered just not good, and so I would fight individuals. I was a part of the gladiator fights where they would have us go out to the group yard, and we were fighting different races and even each other. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just a consistency of violence back there in the beginning.
Hold on, let me ask you something. You mean to tell me that in an environment where the police is trying to hurt you and other races is trying to hurt you, that a nigga will go out in the yard and square off with you for the entertainment of the police?
Yes, absolutely. 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 That's what
Let
it was.
me ask you,
and it was so stupid.
Where do these types of guys live? You explained that snitches couldn't live and, things like that. Guys that do shit like that, that's a form of being a traitor, if you ask me. You think the white boys would do that to each other? I'm asking your personal opinion.
As far as?
If you think the white boys would go out there and fight each other?
Yeah, no, not at all. They have structure.
Right.
They have structure. The only time they're touching each other is if they're
disciplined.
If someone's messed up.
Yeah, somebody
exactly.
fucked up.
Right.
Damn, man, I'm from the East Coast, man, and I'm listening to everything you're saying, man. It seems like, I know that when you was in the hole and the old timers start feeding you them books and shit like that, they got you together, but it's a whole lot more the level of culture on the East Coast is just totally different than what you describing to me. Like
Absolutely.
Are you familiar with that? Have you heard that before?
I'm very much familiar. You know what I'm saying? And what the crazy thing about it is that we should be much more conscious. We should be more together. We're up against the same cruel and unusual punishment in this environment. So you would think all the races would come together, but it's not like that, and our mentality, you got to realize this, that the overseers, they read from the same books that we read from.
Right.
They read, they know our politics.
Right.
And so they utilize our politics against us.
Mm.
And they've been doing this for generation to generation. And this generational curse has been cast down to each individual that comes in here. And so in order to break this cycle, you have to wake up. And even when you wake up, you got to realize you're still surrounded by a bunch of individuals who are still caught up in that generational curse.
Right.
That subliminal messaging that they've given them, the direct messaging of cancer that they've put into their brains. You know what I'm saying? To behave the way that they behave. I was one of them. When I came in here, I thought that the way that we were doing things was the right way to do it. Here it is. I was just continuing the same ignorance that has been passed on from generation to generation.
Right. Damn. Okay. Something else I had to ask you. In regards to, the segregation that goes on in California prisons. When y'all broke down into the black folks, the white folks, and the Mexicans, etc., do y'all still have differences with the Bloods and shit like that?
Yes. Okay.
This is crazy
it's crazy because it's very crazy. So this is the crazy thing about prison. Don't get me wrong. When a riot kicks off, it's a black thing. You know what I'm saying? If a riot kicks off with another race, it's a black thing. But when there is no riots happening and stuff like that, there's still conflict. You have Crip against Blood, Blood against Crip, Crip against Bay Area against Blood. It's so ignorant at times.
It sounds so ignorant. That's the proper word to describe it. It sounds superiorly ignorant.
The culture is changing. Real talk. The culture is changing, though. I will say that. Because once we did the in-hostilities from the Q, the elders did that and encouraged the in-hostilities. Because riots don't take place in Southern California as much as it did back in the day. Because we've encouraged the in-hostilities. So we now are able to solve a lot of our problems internally. You know what I'm saying? And prevent a lot of the nonsense before it even gets started. But when now we're starting to come to a common ground because we're understanding that, the reality is that it's hard to be black. And I love that it's hard to be black because it builds character. But at some point, we need to start coming together. But there's still that separation, though, because we're brought up in that lifestyle of, I'm a Crip, I'm Blood, I'm Bay Area, forget these, you know what I'm saying? And so, it's going to take some time. It's definitely going to take some time. Right.
How long was you in the hole before you wrote your first book?
I want to say about 6 years.
Okay.
6-7 years.
So before you wrote that first book, then probably them first 5 years, you was just down there bugging out.
I was bugging out. You know what I'm saying? And, my thing was, so I was taught anytime you're in a hole and a door opens up in front of a staff, you get off. You know what I'm saying? Because they put you in handcuffs for a reason.
Right.
That's what I was taught. Even though I don't think that was the right teaching back then, but that's what I was taught. You can't give a youngling information without correct consciousness. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so if you don't give them that correct consciousness, what's going to happen is they're going to just going to run with it. And so my thing was refusing to allow an unjust system to break me.
Right.
And that's what I was on. I was a warrior. I got all the paperwork to show it. I got over 40 RVRs. and I'm not proud of it. There's nothing about my RVRs that I'm proud of.
What's that, misconduct
And
ticket?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So whether it's fighting, whether it's stabbing, whether it's battery on staff, whether it's refusing to obey a direct order, I got so much stuff on my jacket, and that's what I was taught when I came in here. You rebel, you resist. You got life sentences. You have nothing to lose anymore. You're never going home.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
That's what was put into. Yes, sir. That's what was put into me. And so if I'm never going home, that means I have nothing to lose. And if I have nothing to lose, then forget it. My life is over. I'm going to die in here, and I'm going to die on my terms. That was my mentality back then.
When you said you had nothing to lose and you was having them confrontations with the police, you didn't have no fear that they would kill you down there? Because we already know how.
I had no. Yeah, I didn't. Back then, I didn't. I was a child, man. Mentally, I was still a child, and I didn't have any fear that they would kill me. I knew they were going to kill me, and I was ready for it.
Okay.
That was my mentality.
So, what was the name of the first book?
My first book was Sugar for My Granny. So Sugar for My Granny was, it was created from a saying that my grandmother and we always say. She always says, sugar for my granny. She says, sugar for the granny, and I say, too sweet for the mama. And that's been our saying since I was a kid. Okay. And we still say it today. And so I wanted to do something to honor her, to honor her legacy, because she is such an amazing woman, and so, I did that, just to cherish my granny. It's funny because when I first started writing, it was like I was doing poetry and stuff like that, and I was sending it home, and my mother was like, you write pretty good. I hope you understand that. And initially, I wasn't thinking that I wrote good. I was always, self-conscious of everything that I did. And so, once she encouraged me and said, look, we have something here. Let's do something with this. She set me on my path. It's funny because every time she would have me write a book, I would stay out of trouble the whole time I'm writing the book. And every time I wasn't writing the book, I would find myself in trouble. And so I think she had a method to her madness, and so, but it was beautiful though, because she inspired something in me as well. Because one thing that she inspired was the belief that I could. She believed in me in a way that nobody else could believe in me. And I respect it, and I love her for that.
Right. Did y'all relationship continue during the early parts of your incarceration?
During the early parts of my incarceration, our relationship was still kind of, it teetered because, you got to realize it was still fresh in her mind that the police, ran into the house and took her out of the house and took my brother out the house and, searched the house and everything else. And so, that particular hurt and pain, it affected the relationship. She did, she was coming through from time to time, but our relationship didn't get strong until I want to say around 5 or 6 years into my incarceration.
Okay. So, while in the hole, you self-publishing books.
Yes, sir.
All of this information was at your disposal down there in the hole?
No, my mother was assisting me. So she knew somebody in a company, and we went through that process. And I was able to publish Sugar for My Granny, and I believe the other one was Character and Ethics. It was a book of quotes. Then my mother said, it's time to step that up. And so she gave me an idea for a woman who had an alter ego. And once she gave me that idea, I just ran with it. And so I ended up writing a book called Love Towards Seductive. That book is about a female serial killer with an alter ego. And that alter ego is a man. And the alter ego is in love with her. So anytime she gives her heart to someone, or anytime someone breaks her heart, her alter ego comes out and kills her. And it turned out pretty well. My other book is Divine Comprehension. Divine Comprehension I wrote in 7 days. it was just one of those times that I was really in the matrix. You know, I was so disciplined. I was a vegan. I was busting down hard, like hours at a time. And, you know, I was just focused. And so, you know, I started writing the original quotes. From the original quotes, I started explaining what those quotes meant. And then I left a positive affirmation at the end. You know, and that was another book that really just stood out to a lot of individuals. It helped a lot of people.
Okay. How many did you write total?
Total, I believe I wrote 7.
7 books. That's incredible. How were you able to? Are they on Amazon? Shit like that. How was you able to market and promote them and all of that? How were they accessible to the public?
Yes, they're accessible to the public through Amazon. And through Midnight Express. In other areas of publications, Barnes and Noble, ebooks, etc.
Okay, got it. Now, at which point did you get off into music?
Okay, so 2020, COVID. When COVID happened, I'm sitting up in the cell and I'm asking myself, what am I going to do? You know, I'm just sitting here doing nothing. They're not running college. They're not doing anything. And I'm just sitting here reading the same books over and over and over again. And something just clicked. Like, try something different. You know, it's time for you to set a mark, you know what I'm saying, in history. And I remember wanting to just do music. You know, I've done music throughout my life, but I was never really serious about it until that moment. And so I started learning about how to record music on a cell phone.
Yeah, this Tragedy Gaddafi repping that true ever, forever, respectfully. Tune in, stay tuned. We with that Gully TV, everything Gully, everything ooh-ah, 2-5, Queens finest.